Learning target 4 is where we're going to use statistics to compare center and spread of two different data sets. This can be done in a lot of different ways. What we're going to talk about specifically in this section is talking about comparing center and spread. So we're going to talk about measures of center and measures of spread and different things that you can do to calculate those with data sets. So I think you've heard of these three measures of center before, mean, median, and mode. So I want you to write down the definitions even though you've probably heard of them before, just so that you have it to reference later in case you forget, and then also just to cement it in your brain. And then one more thing, outliers. This might be a new vocabulary word for you, might not. Outliers are values that are unusually far from the middle, and they have a strong influence on the mean or on the average. If there's a really high number thrown in there or a really low number thrown in there, it's really going to affect the mean, but it's not going to affect the median. So the median won't be affected by really large or really small numbers. It's still in the middle no matter what. So go ahead, write those down, pause the video if you need to, and then when you're ready to move on, press play. Okay, so in our example, it's a data set that shows the number of people who attended a movie theater over 16 days. And I didn't want to take forever to show you how to do this, finding the measures of center, just because of the fact that I feel like you guys should be pretty good at this by now. You've done it before, so I just wanted to give you a little reminder. Basically, to find the measures of center, what you're going to do is you're going to find the mean, you're going to take the sum of the values, divide by the number, okay, and that's going to give you the mean. So the mean is 30.25. The median is 22. How you find that? You put them in order from smallest to biggest. And then you find the middle numbers. In this case, it's two numbers in the middle, so you have to find the middle, which would be halfway between 21 and 23. If you weren't sure what was in the middle of them, because it wasn't such an easy task, you would average them out. So you'd take 21 plus 23 and divide it by 2, which would give you 44 divided by 2, which is how you get 22. Okay, so you can average those if you're not sure what number is in the middle. And then the most frequent value, 21, is the mode. Okay, so we've got 30.25, we've got 22, and we've got 21. And Part B says the theater's management wants to compare its attendance to that of other theaters in the area. Which measure of center best represents the data? So in this case, it wants to think about its attendance compared to others. And this is something that's really interesting, is a lot of times people use the average. They use the mean as a number to talk about data. And honestly, sometimes the mean is not a good measure of the measure of center because of the fact that it can be really affected by outliers. And in this case, we've got two really big numbers. We've got 80 and 92, okay? Those numbers right there, those numbers are called outliers because they lie outside of the middle of the rest of the data. They really are a lot larger than the rest of the data. And those two numbers really make the mean a lot higher than what you would expect. So if they really wanted to compare with others, I would say that the measure of center that best represents it is probably the median or the mode. In this case, they're both the same. I would say that oftentimes the mode is not the best measure of center. It's good in some situations where you want to know maybe what is preferred the most, but in this case I would say that it's not the best because it could be that they had 4 days in a row during the week where they had only 3 people visit the theater, and so then they have that be the mode, but that doesn't really give you a lot of information about what their normal numbers are. So I would say median is probably the best one to represent this data. The next thing we're going to talk about is finding a 5-number summary. This might be something that you've heard of before, maybe not. I just want you to go ahead and write down the steps along with me as I talk through them. Try to either listen as I go through them if you can write them down at the same time. Otherwise, pause it, write them down, and then listen. I'm going to talk about it real quick. So we're going to find a 5-number summary. That means we're going to find 5 numbers. What we're going to find is the min, the Q1, the median, Q3, and the max. That's 5 numbers, okay? And the minimum and the maximum are obviously pretty easy. You put step one, put the data in order from smallest to largest. The smallest number is the minimum. The largest number is the maximum. That's 2357 in this case, okay? 2,357. And then after that, what you're going to do, find the minimum and maximum values. Then you're going to find the median, okay? The median we talked about already. It's that middle number. If there's two numbers in the middle, you're going to average those out to find the actual median. In this case, it's just one number, 416, okay? And then the Q1 and the Q3 are called quartiles. That's what the Q stands for. And Q1 and Q3 break the data up after we've done it in half with the median. The Q1 and Q3 break it into 4 parts. That's where the word quartile comes from. Okay, so the Q1 breaks up the lower half of the data into 2 parts by finding the median of that. And then the Q3 breaks the upper half of the data into 2 parts by finding the median of the upper half of the data. Okay, so in this case, it's just 288 and 841. And something worth mentioning in this case is that the minimum is included in the lower half of the data, the maximum is included in the upper half of the data, and the median is on its own. So when you're going to be finding the median of that lower half, you do include the minimum but not the median. Okay? So I'm going to show you an example here, and oops, I forgot one thing here, interquartile range. So interquartile range is the difference between the first quartile and the third quartile. So that kind of just gives us a little bit of a piece of information about the range of the data. It tells us where most of the data lies because that would be about half of the data between the first and third quartile. So in this case, 841 minus 288, the interquartile range for that example, for the example about the Chicago Bulls, would be 841 minus 288, whatever that equals, okay? So I want to find the 5-number summary about the movie theater data. So to save time, I already had put it in order from the previous example, so I just copied and pasted that here. We already know that the median is 22. We know from it being in order that the minimum is 7. And we know that the maximum is 92. All right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the data from the lower half, including the minimum, but not the median, and the upper half, including the maximum, but not the median. And I'm going to go ahead and find the median of that data, okay? So the way that I do this personally to find the middle number for sure is I just cross off as I go. So I just kind of work my way in towards the middle. So it looks like 14 there is my Q1. And then same thing over here, work my way into the middle, and 35 is my Q3. So my 5-number summary is 7, 14, 22, 35, 92. And 5-number summaries, you can just put them like that in order because we know what they all stand for. Minimum, Q1, median, Q3, maximum. Okay? So before you come to class, I want you to find the measures of center. That would be mean, median, mode. Any numbers that I have identified that you think are outliers. And then also find a 5-number summary. And then also let's add on, find the IQR, the interquartile range, as well of the following data set. So let me go back here. The interquartile range of this data set would be the Q3 minus the Q1. So it would be 35 minus 14. Okay, the Q3 minus the Q1. And in this case, that would be 21. Okay? So go ahead and do that with the data set here before you come to class. Make sure you fill out the questions form if you have any questions.